Assess the impact of Mussolini's foreign policy on Italy. Mussolini's foreign policy had a profound but ultimately damaging impact on Italy across political, economic, military, and social spheres. While early actions enhanced his domestic prestige and appeared to restore national pride, the aggressive turn from the mid-1930s onward isolated Italy internationally, strained its fragile economy, exposed military weaknesses, and contributed decisively to the regime's collapse in 1943 and Mussolini's own downfall. Overall, the negative consequences far outweighed the short-term gains, as foreign policy ambitions sacrificed Italy's long-term security and prosperity for illusory imperial glory. In the early years, 1922–1934, Mussolini's foreign policy delivered tangible political benefits at home. The 1923 Corfu incident, where Italy bombarded and occupied the Greek island before withdrawing after receiving compensation, projected an image of decisive leadership and restored national pride after the mutilated victory of 1919. Mussolini exploited this to portray himself as a strongman who could defend Italian honor against weaker states and even the League of Nations. Similarly, Italian influence in Albania, formalized through treaties in the late 1920s, and the 1934 prevention of Austrian Anschluss, via troops on the Brenner Pass, reinforced the narrative of Italy as a great power capable of checking German ambitions. These episodes boosted Mussolini's domestic standing significantly. Propaganda celebrated him as the restorer of Roman greatness, helping consolidate fascist control during a period when internal repression, Acerbo law, Matteotti crisis aftermath, required popular legitimacy. The 1935 stress affront with Britain and France temporarily positioned Italy as a respected balancer in Europe, further enhancing Mussolini's prestige. However, the Abyssinian War, 1935–1936, marked a turning point with mixed but increasingly negative repercussions. The conquest of Ethiopia was a major propaganda triumph. Victory parades, the proclamation of empire in May 1936, and the title Emperor of Ethiopia, for Victor Emmanuel III, generated genuine enthusiasm, especially among the middle classes and urban populations. It appeared to fulfill the promise of a new Roman Empire and temporarily masked economic difficulties. Yet the political cost was enormous. League of Nations sanctions, albeit limited, excluding oil, humiliated Italy internationally and pushed Mussolini toward closer alignment with Nazi Germany. The Rome-Berlin Axis, 1936, and the Anti-Comintern Pact isolated Italy from the Western democracies, ending any realistic chance of balancing between them. Domestically, while the war initially rallied support, the long-term effect eroded trust as casualties mounted and economic strain became evident. The economic impact was overwhelmingly destructive. The Abyssinian Campaign and subsequent interventions, Spanish Civil War 1936–1939, Albania 1939, drained resources from an already weak economy. Italy lost substantial foreign currency reserves paying for the war, while sanctions reduced exports and access to raw materials. Mussolini's response, intensifying autarky after 1936, achieved self-sufficiency in grain, but at huge cost. Industrial inefficiency, higher prices, and reliance on inferior substitutes, e.g., synthetic textiles. Rearmament for prospective wars further diverted investment from civilian needs. By 1939, Italy's economy was critically overstretched, with living standards stagnating or declining for many workers and peasants. Foreign policy thus undermined the very economic stability that early fascist corporatism had promised to deliver. Militarily, the consequences proved catastrophic. The Pact of Steel, 1939, with Germany committed Italy to war without adequate preparation. Mussolini's boasts of an 8 million-strong army were hollow, equipment was outdated, training inadequate, and industrial capacity insufficient for sustained modern warfare. The Spanish Civil War, while ideologically aligning Italy with fascism abroad, exhausted resources and revealed tactical weaknesses, e.g., poor performance of Italian volunteers. When Italy entered World War II in June 1940, foreign policy decisions left the armed forces unprepared for conflict against major powers. Disastrous campaigns in Greece, 1940–1941, North Africa, and the Balkans exposed Italy's military fragility, requiring German rescue and eroding domestic morale. By 1943, Allied invasions and military collapse precipitated the fall of Mussolini and the fascist regime. Socially, foreign policy initially unified Italians around nationalist rhetoric, but later bred disillusionment. Early successes fostered a sense of collective achievement and strengthened fascist identity. However, prolonged war, economic hardship, heavy casualties, especially after 1940, and evident German dominance alienated large sections of the population, including those who had previously supported the regime for stability rather than ideology. The gap between propaganda claims and battlefield reality fueled cynicism and passive resistance. In conclusion, while Mussolini's foreign policy delivered short-term political capital through prestige victories and imperial rhetoric in the 1920s and mid-1930s, its long-term impact on Italy was profoundly negative. It isolated the country diplomatically, crippled the economy through unsustainable military expenditure and sanctions, exposed fatal military weaknesses, and ultimately destroyed the domestic support necessary for regime survival. The pursuit of imperial grandeur and alignment with Nazi Germany sacrificed Italy's security and prosperity, making foreign policy the single most important factor in the downfall of Mussolini and fascism. The early gains were superficial and temporary. The ultimate legacy was disaster.